This is episode 27, and today I will talk with my guest about healthy singing habits and achieving more ease. Welcome to Freya Singing Tips, the podcast. My name is Freya Casey, professional singer and vocal coach. I have been on stage my whole life, and I'm passionate about helping you discover the awesomeness in your own voice. Opera, musical theater, jazz, pop, folk, rock. I have done it all. And I want to give you golden nuggets of advice on how to be the master of your voice. I am so happy to be presenting you the guest that I have on my show today. Tim Seelig is an awesome singer, choir director, and so much more. I will tell you more about him in just a little bit. But before we start, I want to let you know that I will actually start taking applications for my upcoming master class. I have some master classes that will start in November, and they are filled up already, but I will also start master classes in January. Now, what is a master class? A master class is called master class just because there's usually one master, which in this case would be me, and also there are some students that I will be teaching. We will all be in an online class setting, which means everybody will get one-on-one session with me in the beginning, and then we'll have another one toward the end of the whole session. This will go for 3 months, and we will meet once a week, every week, until the 3 months are over, and work together. Not only will you start becoming more confident singing in front of others, but also you will learn to listen differently because you have to give input too. Yes, you will be part of the class, and as that, you will also have to give some instructions to your colleagues. So that will really challenge you to listen and to really start troubleshooting other singers, which will help you learn so much more about your own voice. So you can go to freyasingingtips.com and just go to the Work With Me tab, and you will find out more details about that. So now we're going to go to our interview with Tim Seelig. Well, I am totally excited to have with us today Tim Seelig. And when I introduce him now, the list, it goes on and on and on what he has done in his lifetime. I'm just going to sum it up just a little bit. Now, he's a conductor, singer, teacher, and motivational speaker. I love that part too. In addition to artistic director of the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus, he continues a busy guest conducting schedule throughout the U.S. and across the globe. He is conductor emeritus of the Turtle Creek Chorale. That is in Dallas, and I remember that time when I was in Dallas too, which you conducted for 20 years, co-founded the Women's Chorus of Dallas, and taught on the faculty of Southern Methodist University, which is where we met, and he was one of my profs, actually. I enjoyed my time very much. I always have this deep memory of him. Now, get this, he holds 4 degrees, including a Doctor of Musical Arts and the diploma from the Mozarteum in Salzburg, Austria. He has authored 7 books and DVDs on choral technique, including bestsellers The Perfect Blend, The Perfect Rehearsal, The Perfect Choral Workbook, Quick Choral Fixes, The Music Within, and The Language of Music. And he has conducted around the world and regularly at Carnegie Hall for the past 25 years, as well as Lincoln Center and the South Bank Center in London. Okay, now that's only a short excerpt of the stuff that he has been doing. So, needless to say that I was not only impressed by the stuff that he has been doing in life, but I really was so impressed already when he was one of my profs. He also was the choir director at the university. And I have to say, he was one of the most memorable choir directors just because there was a calmness. And I'm going to ask him about this. He would do the gestures, and I don't know how he did it. Everybody knew what the bell was supposed to be, just by the hand gesture. So welcome, Tim, to the show today.
Thank you so much. Wow, that was a lovely interview, and now we don't have any time left. So thanks for being here, folks.
Oh, we're going to have plenty of time to ask you some very important questions.
Great.
So what interests me is really I'm all about ease in the voice. And what I always
Right.
appreciated about you and your classes, we had this class together. It was vocal pedagogy and vocal literature. And yes, for me nowadays, especially in popular music, there's this issue of healthy voice. And how do you do it so your voice actually stays healthy over many, many years? So I would like to ask you, what is your take on popular music nowadays, and how can young and maybe not so young singers that are really enjoying singing and really want to get further with their voice, how can they make sure, what would your advice be to keep your voice healthy and to keep an ease?
Well, that was a long question, Freya. I'd like to start, since you asked that question, with sort of a genealogy of vocal teachers that I sort of aspire to. There was a very famous teacher in the United States named Alan Lindquist, and he taught William Vernard. And William Vernard wrote what is really the Bible of vocal technique in the late 60s that still stands today as one of the textbooks. Alan Lindquist and William Vernard said, we need to strip away, let go, find the natural voice that is within you. And actually that good voice teachers would do that and would strip away all of the things that we have imagined that a voice should be. So I think, taking that full circle back to your question, I think one of the worst things that our kids do today is try to imitate exactly the sound or the vocal technique of someone else, because everybody's is unique. We all agree that there is not a one-size-fits-all. As a voice teacher, when you hear voice students from a particular studio and they all sound the same, run far away. Every student should have that authentic self, and I'll talk about that some more.
That's awesome that you say that, because that's what I have been preaching a lot. And especially in the past few weeks, I have actually created some videos and podcast episodes where I've talked just about that, because I think it's all about finding your natural voice.
Nice.
Only then can you find an ease in that.
Right. I often quote an author named Brenda Ueland. It's Ueland. And she writes that everyone is talented. Everyone is original. But not everyone is authentic. And when we find our authentic self and tell the truth through our music, that's when we're special. Because everyone is talented to some degree and everyone's original. But until you can tell the truth and be authentic, and that strips things away. Nobody is really interested in a copycat karaoke singer without something that sets them apart.
Yes, plus I think it's never going to be as much fun to try to imitate someone, because you're always going to be frustrated because you can never sound that way.
Correct. So make it your own.
And vice versa.
Yeah.
That other person is never going to sound like you.
The other thing I might say about the question that you asked is, you're driving along in a car and it stops and you have no idea what to do. And so you call the tow truck or the mechanic, and they come out and they look at your car and they say, oh, you're out of gas. So that is my story to say. When you have any kind of issue or trouble or difficulty, we often go under the hood and start fixing the mask sound or the tongue position, and we start doing all this I call fiddling around under the hood, when really there was no gas. And so I go every single time back to the body and the breath, every single time. And I think we get it backwards. So we start with the minutia, the little things that we want to, oh dear, there's something wrong with your jaw position or whatever that is, when actually the truth is you're not standing correctly, you're not holding your instrument for singing, and you're not breathing. So that's where I start with my chorus every week, every single week.
That's awesome, just because that's exactly how I teach my students. And especially lately, I actually just now created a brand new online course that's going to come out very soon that's all about having perfect support. And it talks about breathing and posture and, taking time to breathe and to have an ease in that and not get tight.
Freya, in your notes from vocal pedagogy all those many years ago, I'm trying to remember which author said it, but he said there's no such thing as breath support. It's all breath pacing. And so when you have good breathing technique, then your choice is how to pace the breath through the vocal folds. And that really it's the appoggio. You remember the appoggio, to lean. So how much are you going to lean on that breathing? And I find that, but if you haven't learned the breath, and the posture,
Yes.
then you're not going to be able to understand the myoelastic aerodynamic pendulum between muscle and air. It's pretty much all that. Then we can start with resonance adjustment and all those kinds of things.
Yes, exactly. So I want to ask you something very specific now.
Okay.
Seems like everybody nowadays is kind of obsessed by singing just high. Now, while I think it is very important to work the whole of your voice, the lower notes are just as important as the top notes and the middle. But let's talk about singing high. And let's just take what you just said right before this about the breath flow and about how the air passes through the vocal folds. What would you describe as how do you actually help someone
Wow.
to get better high notes?
That's fascinating. Coming from a soprano to a bass, that's a lovely question. I like singing low because I'm a bass baritone. I love that. The interesting thing about all of this process, and I know you're a firm believer in the letting go. People always ask me how to expand range, and I know you've discussed this. You really can't expand your range lower than your vocal folds really want to go. You can improve on it, but you can't expand it. On the upper end, however, of course, you can increase the range in the top. For me, it's understanding, which is a passaggio thing, which you've discussed as well, but it's understanding that as you go up in your range, the vocal muscle is actually letting go. And what we do is we carry way too much muscle up into the upper regions of the range, and then we can't go any farther. For me, once you get the breath correct, etc., matching that pitch in a whistle, which I know you have, the sort of whistle register, is a matter of letting go. And it's not a matter of muscling up to the upper registers, but more of letting go of those muscles.
Oh, yes, I found out too, because, I'm a trained soprano and a coloratura soprano at that.
Yes.
However, in the past 10 years, I have been singing so much popular repertoire. I mean, I even sing heavy metal, I sing rock, I sing anything nowadays.
Right.
But what I learned is that actually think not heavier on the top, but actually lighter and thinner and more condensed.
Right.
And I think that's what a lot of singers, they have this misconception of the higher you get, the louder you have to get, and the more you have to press.
Correct. It is actually the opposite, in my opinion. So I like teaching this pyramid so that it has a great foundation, and then as you go up, the muscle releases, and we're teaching like this. There are times when you have to do this. And part of it also has to do with what you're singing, which you have found out. If you're singing, well, if you're a coloratura, you're going to cut above the orchestra just because. For us, bass baritones, we have to find some other way to do it. But it depends on what repertoire you're singing as well. And if you're singing pop music and you have amplification, you do not need to press and you don't need muscle. Just an aside, the first time I heard Phantom of the Opera on Broadway with Michael Crawford singing The Phantom, and I was like, people were like, oh my gosh, how can he do that? Well, that's because he had a mic stuck in his hat. So he floated 8 performances a week, and everybody thinks he's singing big, operatic tenor. No, it was pretty much, mixed or falsetto. So I think that's one of the things of letting go as you move toward the top, and always thinking that at least in training, train the voice this way. And you can always open that up if you need to belt in the top.
Yeah, and that comes back again to vocal health. To me, it's always very important that whatever I do, I can do it for a long time to where I'm not going to be worn out. And I don't want to put too much strain on my vocal cords ever. I want to use my core. That can take all the strain in the world because those big muscles, you could work them forever.
They are.
Just your vocal cords are very delicate, so you want to be very careful on them.
They are.
All right, that is really cool. So let's go back to vocal health. I remember in our class, that was so much fun. That part really stuck with me too. I would love for you to give a few very practical tips for singers for vocal health.
I would love to. And, Freya, you didn't know I was going to say this, but if you go to YouTube and you put in Tim Seelig vocal folds, you will see me with an audiologist, a vocalogist, who is actually filming my vocal folds and talking about vocal health while showing my vocal folds. So that's on YouTube, Tim Seelig vocal folds. It's kind of gross, but it's some of the best film that I've seen. She did a really great job. So she talks about while we're looking at my vocal folds, and I'm going, She talks about how to keep the vocal folds healthy. And they're the normal things that we know of hydrating and doing all those healthy things, exercise, those things that we know. But then there's more about how to medicate when you need to medicate and what things are good. There's an awesome gargle. By the way, it's called Dr. Gould's Gargle, and I give the recipe on that little YouTube clip, but it's an awesome gargle. People always think, I'm going to drink some hot tea or some chicken soup. It doesn't affect your vocal folds at all. So the gargle is like a miracle. The care of your vocal folds, obviously, your whole body is important. And understanding when you are not feeling well, where it resides. Is it residing here? Is it residing here in your chest? How is it passing over your vocal folds is really important. And, it gets kind of gross about the color of mucus that you need to be aware of what that's like. That's pretty much it. And there's a good explanation on that YouTube.
Yeah, I will definitely link that up in the show notes so everybody can go check that out.
Right.
I actually had that idea myself. That I wanted to actually do something like that and have someone stick that endoscope in through my throat.
Yeah, you'll see that I had the option of fiber optics through the nose or the endoscope. And the film is better, the light is better on the endoscope. So you can't sing an aria or a pop tune while it's in your mouth, but it's pretty dramatic. I think you'll like it.
Okay, that is really cool. So I just wanted to ask you some personal question now. Just tell us about, I think that's always very interesting. Like me, I have been on stage since I was a kid.
Right.
What was your first time that you were on stage that you remember actually singing on stage?
Well, I grew up in Texas, and I grew up in church. So standing and singing, my parents, of course, would say, sing for the relatives, sing for the friends whenever they came over. And then in church, probably 5 years old, standing in front of the church. We were in a big church because it was a Baptist church and it was in Texas. Of course it was big. But I grew up singing in the church, and I didn't know that I was going to have a career or a singing career. But when it came time for college, it was either math or music. And I thought, I think I'll do music. It sounds easier. So I ended up getting, as you mentioned earlier, 4 degrees in vocal performance, vocal pedagogy, with a minor in conducting. And then went to the Mozarteum and studied, and then moved back to Switzerland to sing opera. And then I realized that's not really what I wanted to do. It didn't fit my personality type. And I wish I had done a good Myers-Briggs personality test early on, because it might have told me that it's not the best career for me. I really like the interaction. I like teaching. I like groups of people. And the opera singing it's lonely. You studying your score, and you're working with a coach, and then you're going and dressing up as someone else, and then you're on stage, and then you go home. It's very focused, and not in a bad way, but I am much more energized by group interactivity. And so I decided that's not what I wanted to do. I had no idea I was teaching voice in university, and began conducting, and realized that what I had learned I was able to use to teach now 300 men in my chorus. That would be 300. So it's a great story, the way it all unfolded, which is quite interesting. Personally, I had a wife and 2 children while we were singing opera and living in Europe. It was wonderful. But then I realized I was gay, came home, and got a divorce, and sort of lost my jobs. And I was like, oh dear, now what do I do? And the conducting field opened up, and it has been now almost 30 years of just pure joy. One of the things I did want to say is for young opera singers, it's hard, as you know. It's a hard life that they've chosen, not just getting a job, but coping with all the things that are included and involved in being an opera singer. And as I am sure you've heard me say in class, it's really all about being true to yourself. Find out who you are. Make sure you know that you're really well grounded before you just go seeking these careers and running all over auditioning. Make sure that is exactly what you want, because it's not an easy life, and it's incredibly rewarding once when you start doing it. But again, I think it goes back to you as a person, making sure you know who you are and what it all entails.
Oh yes, I absolutely believe that doors will open in your life when you stay true to yourself, because especially in music, you have to be at a point to where it can be your whole life. and you love it. You totally love that life. And I think that's true, no matter what area of your life,
Right.
if you have the feeling that's really you,
Yep.
then things will start happening in life and doors will begin to open. And then you will feel this fulfillment that you're never going to feel if you're doing something that somebody else
Right.
imposed on you.
Correct. Yeah, I agree. You may remember at the first of class, we would go around the room at the first day of class and say, what do you want to be? And it was opera singer, opera singer, opera singer, opera singer. And I would say, that's great. Now, what's your other choice? What's your second choice? And it caught everybody off guard because they had come to SMU to study opera. And I would say, well, we're not going to leave until you come up with a second choice. And it started opening up conversations of, well, I love to teach. I love to sew costumes. I love being backstage. I like marketing of music. So there was this ancillary, but it was hard because nobody wants to give up on that. I want to be an opera singer. But reality is, as you have proven, you kind of have to gig out. You have to be willing and open to do a lot of things, not just in case, but as really fulfillment in other areas of your life. So I always thought that was fun. It didn't make the voice teachers all that happy. But, that was okay.
Yeah, for me, it has only enriched my life to do many things. And I'm someone, I could do, if I had another life, then, I could imagine so many things that I would want to do. Of course, I had to decide, and definitely what I'm doing now is exactly what I need to be doing. But even as far as singing goes,
Right.
I could never actually say that I'm only going to sing opera. And whenever people ask me, what's your favorite genre? Or what's your favorite
Right.
piece? I always say, it's what I'm singing right now,
Right.
this moment. So whatever that may be, at that moment,
Correct.
that's my favorite.
Depends on the day.
So
Right. I think it's important not to pigeonhole yourself so intimately into one area that you can't be happy broadening out. It's awesome what you're doing. It's great.
Oh, thank you. Okay, final question now. What
Yes.
is the best piece of advice that you have ever gotten?
Oh my goodness, that's a really good question. This is interesting. I was in St. Gallen singing opera, and I knew that it was not the right thing. But I had my wife and 2 small children with me, and we had begged, borrowed, stolen every penny we could get to make the move to Switzerland. And I realized it wasn't the right thing, but I had the hardest time admitting defeat, admitting that I had chosen the wrong path. There was a huge a disappointment in myself. I just couldn't go home. I just couldn't admit that we had gone to all this trouble. I had worked this hard for all those years, and I had gotten there, and it wasn't what I was supposed to do. So I wrote a friend at home, and he wrote back and said, that old Robert Frost poem, 2 roads diverged in a yellow wood. Sorry, I could not travel one. But you took a path and you followed it. And boy, you worked hard and you got degrees and you followed it and it came to a dead end. And you can either stay at that dead end and be miserable, or you can say, I made the wrong choice, go back to the fork of the road and take the other. It was a really simple thing, but it really changed my thought process. And I said, I'm going to follow my passion, which was teaching and ultimately conducting. I still sing, but it was some advice that, it's never too late to turn back around and try something new. And I think that was that, along with what I'd already said earlier about I finally realized that I had to be true to myself, or it didn't matter what I did, I was not going to be happy. And that was that I had to come out to myself and to the world. And as you know, it wasn't all that easy being a Texas Southern Baptist boy. But telling the truth opened up the entire possibility. Just telling the truth to the world about who I was and to myself opened up a new level of music making for me that was incredible. I also, and I know this is a long answer, but I also feel that music is not the end, but a means to the end. And I think when people understand that singing a perfect performance or a recital is not the end, but what does that lead to? Where does it lead to you as a person and to the people around you? It's always a means to another end of making the world a better place, loving your children more, making your family happy, doing something for the world other than just a perfect recital, which who cares? That was a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah, but I'm totally agree with you. And I totally believe that there's always more than one path to get to where you need to go.
Right.
And there's not right or wrong decision. It's just you make a decision and then that's just the one you made and that's where you are now. But it's never too late to go another way. So you're absolutely right.
I think the most important thing I would say is enjoy the process and have a destination in mind, but enjoy the process. In case you never get to the destination, it's like going on vacation and the whole process of planning it and all that is so great. And you might get there and go, oh, this wasn't all that good, but I had so much fun getting here. And I think that's really key to life and to enjoying life.
Well, thank you so much. I would only like to ask you now, how can we connect with you? If anybody would love to connect with you, how can we find you on the internet?
I have a website that is currently under construction, but should be up in about a week. So by the time this airs, timseelig.com. And anybody can go to YouTube and look up the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus or the Turtle Creek Chorale and hear sort of my life's work as a conductor.
I hope you got so much great information out of this episode. I think Tim is such a knowledgeable person. He is so well-rounded as a singer and also as a choir director and as a vocal coach. I remember him just making certain gestures when he directed our choir, and it just fell all into place. It was just so awesome. It was the most wonderful thing I've ever experienced. And also what I felt is I felt so much ease in my voice when he worked with us. There was no strain. He always respected our individual voices, and that's what made the choir great, and that's what helped everybody to become the greatest singer, even within the choir setting. So you definitely want to check out his website and some of his videos that I will link up in the show notes, and watch his vocal cords as they were filmed by a doctor. That ought to be fun. Thank you guys so much for listening today. I hope you're going to tune back in next Wednesday for another awesome episode. But before I close, I want to make one more announcement. I created a free 7-day video course for you about having perfect support. In my 15 years as a vocal coach, I realized that one of the most prevalent problems that singers have is just support. And now while we all talk about support, not many singers really know what it is and what it feels like and how to have proper support. So I made this 7-day video course, 7 days to perfect support. You can go to my website, freyasingingtips.com, and you will see it right on the top. You can sign up for that, and it is for free. So jump on over there. And until next time, don't forget, always keep a song in your heart and always keep on singing. Bye.